2 rounds old. Saunders took an awkward step back, and now he's holding on.
They said it was impossible, that Terence "Bud" Crawford was too small, too smart to take the bait, that Canelo Alvarez, the red-headed tank of Guadalajara, was simply too big, too strong, too seasoned to ever become his target. But something changed. Whispers turned to noise, noise into headlines, and now a rumor is exploding across boxing circles like a left hook out of nowhere. Roy Jones Jr. has been seen training with Terence Crawford for a potential showdown with Canelo Alvarez. Let that sink in. The same Roy Jones Jr. who danced circles around legends, who won titles from middleweight to heavyweight, who broke every rule in the boxing manual and made it look like jazz. And now somehow, he's in the same room as Bud Crawford, one of the most precise and lethal fighters of the modern era, possibly sharpening the blade for what would be the most technically electric fight in decades. Not just a money fight, not just a crossover fantasy, but a real chess match disguised as war, guided by one of the most unorthodox minds in boxing history. Canelo might be the face of boxing, but Bud, he's the ghost in the machine, and now, with Roy in his corner, that ghost just might be learning new tricks. Is it smoke? Is it strategy? Or are we witnessing the quiet construction of a superweapon? This isn't just another crossover rumor. This could be the beginning of something that rattles the sport's foundations. Let's break it down.
Jones so far. Roy Jones is playing the fainting game, and Griffith is benefiting by it. Oh, what a left hook. What a left hook.
Second knockdown of the round.
Roy Jones Jr. isn't just some retired great who shows up at big fights to flash a smile and talk about the old days. He's a walking revolution that boxing never fully recovered from. In the 1990s, he broke the sport's operating system. He didn't box like anyone before him. Hands down, chin up, reflexes faster than most fighters' thoughts. He made world champions look like they were fighting underwater. And when you think about a guy like that showing up in someone's corner today, especially someone like Terence Crawford, it stops being nostalgia and starts feeling like a strategic weapon. Because Roy wasn't just about flash. He was function dressed as chaos. He turned unconventional movement into defense, made offense out of feints and timing, and destroyed the idea that you had to fight by the book. He went from middleweight all the way to heavyweight, capturing titles in 4 weight classes, and when he knocked out John Ruiz to win a heavyweight belt, he didn't just make history, he told the world that boxing's limits were illusions if your mind was sharp enough and your body fast enough. Now fast forward to 2025. Roy's no longer ducking jabs in the ring, but he's been spotted training fighters quietly, selectively, always staying just close enough to the action without stepping back under the lights. From Chris Eubank Jr. to influencers trying to learn how to move like ghosts, Roy's fingerprints are still on the sport. But he doesn't just train anyone, and if he's choosing to work with Crawford, there's a reason. In an era full of robotic pressure fighters and technical purists, Roy's style remains alien, like a blueprint from a forgotten boxing future. And that kind of insight, that weird science, could be the exact edge Crawford needs to solve the Canelo puzzle. Because Roy doesn't teach what's in the rulebook, he teaches you how to write your own. So when you hear that he's possibly linked up with Terence Crawford, understand, it's not just a throwback, it's a warning. Something's being built behind those gym doors, and if Roy Jones Jr. is on the schematics, best believe it's going to break the mold.
Is the trainer.
Terence "Bud" Crawford doesn't need hype. He is the hype. He's that rare kind of fighter who walks into every weight class like it's his home. Dust even settles. He's not loud. He's not theatrical. But what he is, undeniably, is a problem that no opponent has solved. Undefeated, undisputed, unbothered. And now, possibly unlocking a new dimension with Roy Jones Jr. in his corner. Let's read was still rare, or through the competition to give him Errol Spence Jr., a fight that was years in the making, sold as a 50-50 chess match. Beat Spence. He broke him. Switch hitting mid-combination, timing Spence's rhythm like he'd been studying it for years, dominating the body, controlling the distance, smiling between rounds like he knew something the rest of the world didn't. That's what makes Crawford terrifying. It's not just his speed or power or slick defense, it's his adaptability. He downloads his opponents in real time, adjusts faster than anyone in the sport, and pulls out new tricks round by round. And he does it all while making it look like art. Now imagine a fighter like that, already considered by many to be the pound-for-pound king, getting in sync with a guy like Roy Jones Jr., who made a career out of doing things nobody saw coming. It's not just additive, it's transformative. Because if Bud already operates like a living algorithm, then Roy's influence could introduce unpredictability, angles, rhythms, reflex triggers that even Canelo hasn't seen before. This isn't about patching weaknesses. Crawford doesn't have many. This is about sharpening the blade past the point of what's necessary. It's about becoming untouchable. Fighters train to win. Crawford trains to erase your identity in the ring. With Roy by his side, the blueprint may be evolving into something we've never witnessed before, something not built for weight divisions or rankings or legacy points. If Bud's serious about Canelo, and Roy's really helping to craft the plan, the question isn't whether Crawford has the skill. The question is whether anyone, even Canelo, has the answer.
So if Bud comes up to 168, you'd consider it?
Yeah, why not?
You'd do it?
Yeah.
I know I wanted to fight Jamel, but if he lose to Canelo, for a person to go up 3 weight classes from 147 to 168 and to win and become undisputed, wow.
You want to go up to 68. So who would you fight at 68? Canelo?
If he win, or Charlo, the winner.
Wow. That would be crazy.
I want to be 3-time undisputed.
For months now, the whispers have grown louder, echoing through press conferences, podcasts, and fan forums like static before a storm. Crawford versus Canelo, the pound-for-pound purist versus the face of boxing. 2 titans from different weight classes, built on completely different blueprints, yet somehow hurtling toward the same collision point. But the million-dollar question still hangs in the air, dripping with tension. Is this fight actually going to happen? Or is it just a beautiful lie we're telling ourselves? The origin of the rumor is as messy as any great fight buildup. Some say it started with Crawford himself, throwing subtle shots during interviews, saying he'd be open to it if the money was right. Others point to reporters who caught wind of private negotiations between promotional teams. And then there's the Roy Jones Jr. variable, which added gasoline to a barely lit match. If Crawford's camp is linking up with a legend known for beating much larger men, the logic tree is obvious. They're cooking something big. Meanwhile, on Canelo's end, the message has been less clear. He's hinted at facing champions only, dismissed certain matchups as not interesting, and dodged direct confirmation about Bud. But silence can be strategic. Silence can be noise. Because Canelo knows the second he acknowledges Crawford as a real threat, he gives the story weight. He gives it wings. Promoters aren't helping either. Crawford's been a free agent, moving like a ghost between networks, ducking politics the same way he ducks punches. Canelo's loyal to his own lane, usually opting for hand-picked super fights that maximize legacy and cash. So what would need to happen to make this fight real? A lot. But that's exactly why it feels possible. The absurdity of it all, the weight gap, the timing, the clash of styles, makes it perfect. Too big to ignore, too cinematic to leave on the table. And now, throw Roy into the mix. Suddenly, this fantasy starts to look like preparation. Because no one calls Roy Jones Jr. into camp just for shadowboxing advice. You call Roy when you're planning something outside the box, something historic, something people think you can't do. So, is it real? Is it fantasy? Maybe it's both. But in boxing, that's usually how the biggest fights are born, on the border between hype and prophecy.
Take his time and then start to figure out his opponent and wear him down. Sergio, do you think you can do that against this bigger man?
He's gonna have a...
Terence Crawford is already a surgical assassin, calm, precise, and lethal. But Roy Jones Jr., he was chaos. Where Crawford moves like a sniper, Roy was a glitch in the system. Put those minds together, and you're not just adding tools, you're rewriting the rulebook. Roy's weapon was unpredictability. Lead hooks with hands down, angles no one trained for. He didn't set traps, he was the trap. He fought like jazz, flowing between cadences, making opponents swing at shadows and punishing hesitation with blistering speed. Now hand that toolbox to Crawford, a technician who already reads patterns like code. Roy won't just teach flash, he'll inject controlled chaos, offbeat rhythm, sudden movement, stuff that forces Canelo to reset constantly, never getting comfortable. And it's not just movement. Roy's presence sharpens creativity. Bud might add flurries from weird angles, new counters, rhythm breaks that confuse even the most elite opponents. Roy's confidence wasn't just showmanship, it was psychological warfare. It made fighters doubt themselves before the first bell. Footwork, too. Roy didn't glide, he snapped. Crawford's already elite with positioning, but evasive, something that vanishes, shifts, then hits you from the side. This isn't about turning Bud into a performer, it's about making him unsolvable. Because Canelo's strength is rhythm, he times your habits. But you can't time what doesn't repeat. Roy is the architect of chaos, Crawford is the executor of precision. Fuse them, and suddenly, Canelo's not just facing Bud, he's facing something he's never trained for.
Bivol not throwing back as much this round.
Yeah, Canelo is making a point to win this round and back up Bivol, make him feel this.
Let's cut through the hype. Canelo Alvarez isn't just a name, he's a fortress. Veteran of wars, a pressure tank with a steel chin and counterpunching instincts that end careers. He's walked through light heavyweights and picked apart champions. But he's not invincible, not against Terence Crawford, and especially not if Roy Jones Jr. is behind the blueprint. The path to beating Canelo isn't brute force, it's disruption. He doesn't just throw punches, he stalks, calculates, and breaks rhythm. That's where Crawford thrives. Bud doesn't just adapt between fights. He adjusts mid-round, mid-combo, mid-breath. He switches stances, hides power, and forces hesitation with subtle feints and sharp reads. Canelo depends on patterns, Bud offers puzzles, and when those puzzles change every round, Canelo's rhythm falls apart. Crawford's jab will be key. It's not just a range tool, it's a trap. He uses it to bait reactions, set distance, and control tempo. Against a shorter fighter like Canelo, who lives inside mid-range, that jab becomes a wall. Canelo's bodywork is elite, but Bud doesn't fold under pressure. He ties up, pivots, resets, and punishes openings. One wrong move, one slow entry, and Crawford will counter with something sharp and sudden. Roy's value. He'll add unpredictability, off-angle attacks, low-hand feints, traps you didn't see coming. These are the moves Roy used to neutralize size, and Crawford can weaponize them. Crawford won't go to war. He'll vanish, reappear, and leave Canelo swinging at air. And if he maintains that energy deep into the later rounds, where Canelo sometimes fades, he might not just win, he might dominate. Because if Roy's helped turn Crawford into a phantom, then Canelo won't be fighting Bud. He'll be fighting something boxing's never seen. If Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez actually goes down, if all the whispers, stare-downs, and gym footage finally lead to a signed contract, the boxing world won't just be watching, it'll be holding its breath. Because this fight isn't just about belts, weight classes, or pound-for-pound rankings. It's about legacy, style versus style, intelligence versus experience. And now, maybe it's also about Roy Jones Jr. versus Eddie Reynoso, two fight architects with totally different blueprints trying to build the perfect machine. So, who has the edge? On paper, it's Canelo. He's the naturally bigger man, built like a tank at 168 with a neck that looks like it could absorb shotgun blasts. He's fought punchers, slicksters, brawlers, and even light heavyweights. His chin has held up. His power has carried through divisions. He's methodical, seasoned, and dangerous in the pocket. And unlike most power punchers, he doesn't chase knockouts. He manufactures them. He breaks you down mentally and physically, and closes the show once you've lost faith in your own hands. But Crawford isn't coming into this with a puncher's mentality. He's coming in like a technician who hacks systems. He's the smaller man, yes, but he's also the sharper one. Faster with his feet, quicker with his reads, more versatile with his stance switches and timing. And if Roy Jones Jr. is truly helping him evolve that skill set, then Bud might be walking into the ring with more than just speed and adaptability. He might be bringing a new kind of chaos that Canelo has never had to solve. Size matters, but only if you can use it. And Canelo's not the type to just walk through punches anymore, not at this level. Against Bivol, we saw what happens when you can't corner your opponent or match their volume. Now, imagine a smaller, more fluid version of that same problem, but with knockout power in both hands and a coach who once made heavyweights look like middleweights. Let's talk stamina. Bud Crawford gets stronger as the fight goes on. His best rounds are often in the second half. Canelo, on the other hand, has shown signs of fatigue in high-output fights, especially against movers. If this becomes a chess match at range, where neither man is dominating physically, then it becomes a mental war, and that's where Bud thrives. Experience? They're both loaded. Canelo has more high-profile fights, but Crawford's journey through multiple divisions has tested him in every stylistic matchup. His ability to solve fighters gives him a unique edge that numbers can't show. And the wild card? Roy Jones Jr. If he's in Bud's camp, calling shots, feeding strategy, adding flair to function, then we're not just looking at Crawford 2.0. We're looking at something entirely new. Something Canelo can't prepare for using old footage. Something reactive, unpredictable, dangerous. So who's got the edge? If it's a phone booth war, Canelo all day. But if it's a battle of wits, range, rhythm, and late fight adjustments, Bud might just steal it. And if Roy's fingerprints are truly on the blueprint, Canelo won't just be facing Crawford, he'll be fighting the ghosts of every fighter Roy ever confused, outclassed, or embarrassed. The edge goes to whoever sets the terms of the fight. And right now, it feels like Crawford's already a step ahead.
Huge entourage with Crawford made its way in.
If this fight becomes real, if Roy Jones Jr. really is sharpening Terence Crawford's blade for a clash with Canelo Alvarez, then what we're looking at isn't just another pay-per-view event. It's a generational collision, a once-in-a-decade synthesis of everything boxing fans crave: legacy, skill, danger, and the unknown. Because you don't bring in Roy unless you're planning to do something that breaks the mold. And Crawford? He's never been in this game just to win. He's here to leave no doubt. Canelo's the king of his castle, but kings fall when they get too comfortable. And if Bud walks in there with Roy's chaos layered over his cold precision, then we might just see an empire shaken to its core. Boxing isn't about who shouts the loudest or flexes the hardest. It's about who solves the puzzle. And right now, Bud Crawford's building something different, something smarter, something scarier. And he might just be the fighter who walks through the storm and outclasses the thunder. If you want this fight to happen, if you believe in chess over brute force, if you want to see two masterminds build a legacy that'll echo for generations, hit that like button and subscribe, because if this fight becomes real, we're covering every angle. Roy, Bud, Canelo, legacy, game plan, drama, all of it. This is Knockout, and this is what happens when legends don't fade, they pass the torch. Or maybe they sharpen the sword.